Hello, witches! Grab your goat, stick your arms out, because it is time for the Witches Movie Coven. Yes, witches, real witches, talking about witches, real and fake witches in movies. Tonight we are doing Weapons, a brand new 2025 film. And I am Patti Negri. I am one of your hosts. You might know me from Ghost Adventures. You might know me from my new book, Dollcraft, right out from Llewellyn. You might know me from The Witching Hour, my podcast. You might know me from Bathroom Walls Across America. But I am here and I am proud to introduce you to my co-stars. Let's start today with Richard-Lael.
To quote Courtney, that's me. Hi, Richard-Lael is my name. Richard-Lael is one name, not two. If I were just Richard, I would be a. I am known as the gentleman psychic. I am different than all of the other psychics who are all doom and gloom or love and light. I'm a happy medium. I used to be a psychic and a small, but I gained some weight. And since we're on that topic, you can go right over here to that, and you can go to that mystery control, that thing right over there, and you can get all of our pillows and blankets and hoodies and wonderful things. Also, hit the like and subscribe over wherever that may be, because that helps out the algorithms and that helps us to continue to see you.
Thank you very much. And with the golden locks, Jason Mankey.
I'm Jason Mankey, 10-time Llewellyn author. This is my latest book, High Priest, a biography of Raymond Buckley. That's Jason with one J and not two, because if it had two J's, I would be a JJ, and I'm just a Jason.
Thank you very much. The lovely Heather Greene.
Hi, I'm Heather Greene. I'm the author of Lights, Camera, Witchcraft, the critical history of witches in American film and television. I am also an author. I'm an author. I'm also an editor at Llewellyn Worldwide, working with wonderful witchcraft authors or witchy authors or authors that write about witchcraft and occult things, as well as a journalist covering all things occult and a member of this coven. And I'm really excited to be here again this Wednesday with y'all.
Thank you very much. Now, unfortunately, Courtney cannot be with us this evening. Send her love, send her good vibes, send her hugs. She's not feeling well. Her accident thing is not doing good. So get well soon, Courtney, please. But in her place, we have the wonderful, always so well informed, Scarlett Amaris. Welcome, Scarlett.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Scarlett Amaris. I am a screen and television writer. I've also written books. I also lecture on the history of witchcraft and on mythology, and I've started directing music videos. So that's kind of me.
Thank you very much. All right. So again, we are talking about the movie Weapons. It's a brand new movie. It was directed by Zach Cregger. Hopefully you guys all watched it. I think it's going to HBO Max, but it's been one of those pay to play ones, but I think it was worth it. But before we even get into the movie, our silliness and our great stuff, I want to do a tribute to my friend Trevor Moore. Why, you say? Trevor Moore was one of the Whitest Kids You Know, the comedy group Whitest Kids You Know, along with Zach Cregger, who is the director of this film. Trevor Moore and I met, I don't know, 6-7 years ago and started working together on YouTube, moved to Comedy Channel. And we just hit it off like this. All of a sudden we had a show. We had a show on the Comedy Channel. It was the Trevor Moore Show. I was his psychic sidekick, or to get him to believe in ghosts and not believe in ghosts and all sorts of wonderful things. What he brought to comedy, his sketch comedy, is a whole new era, but the Whitest Kids You Know brought in. And sadly, 3 episodes in, Trevor had a tragic accident and fell off a balcony and passed away in 2021. Devastating to all of us who knew him, because he was the most full of joy guy, and it was great. And even his wife said at the funeral to me that our relationship was this special thing. And this is one of the biggest deaths that have ever affected me. And why I even wanted to bring it up, to not bring us down so I can bring us back up, is the director, also Whitest Kid You Know. He credits the emotional core of the movie of Weapons to his grief over Trevor's death. The film was totally born of that place of loss for him, transformation, and the attempt to find meaning after tragedy. So again, um, thank you very much, Kelvin. Again, I am fine. I live on, but I miss my funny, irreverent, make me roll on the floor and pee myself, Trevor Moore. But Zach lives on, and he went so successfully into directing and movie. And I just want to start there, but let's go get back into the fun and games. Miss you, Trevor. Love you. I'm sure you were at the screening of this film, and hopefully you guys all saw it. But again, just in case you didn't see it, Richard-Lael, do you have a thorough and unbiased synopsis of this lovely film?
No. No, I'm just kidding. I might actually surprise you today because this one is one that I will be direct on, and I will not give any opinions until it is time. 2025. This is a film that takes place in 2025, though I think 2 years after. The date is actually slightly wrong. I think they say that it was a Thursday, the day that the children disappeared, but it was actually like a Tuesday. I don't remember. I don't care. So the story basically is that in this little town in Pennsylvania, this fairly new teacher goes to school one day, and every one of her students have disappeared in the night. All but one lone boy. This one boy, as we discover, his auntie had come, his great aunt or his mother's aunt. We don't know, because this auntie shows up, and she is a little bit terrifying in the fact that she is this aged, elderly person that even the mother and father don't know that well. At one point she says she's the sister, and one point she says she's the auntie. I have a theory which we'll get into in a moment. As it turns out, this woman, after all of these children have disappeared, the teacher has gone through vandalism. People have called her a witch. They have vandalized her car by calling her a witch. They have outcast her. They have ostracized her to the point where when the superintendent or the principal of the school tells her that she needs to go home, she says, "Home? You mean like the liquor store?" Because she's under so much duress. All of her pupils are missing excepting for this boy. All of them. And the whole film is sort of cut up into 5 different segments, 6 at the end. But you realize that there are all of these vignettes that are all happening at the same time, and they all sort of work around and make one cohesive film. It sounds more confusing in storytelling than it actually is via the film, but as it turns out, we find out that the school teacher is not a witch, but it is really the auntie who is a witch, and she has, by using a black tree and taking something from people, has made it so that she can sort of control them like a parasite. How old is she? We don't know. She mentions consumption, which is something that was used from the 18th century to the 19th century to talk about tuberculosis. So we don't really know how old this person is. Is she really the auntie? Well, then why don't the parents know? Does she control the mind? Who knows? As it turns out, she has tricked this little boy into, the boy comes home from school and he finds out that his parents are what paramounts to being zombies. They deal with what looks like addiction. They sit at the table. She basically tells him that she can control them, and that if he doesn't do as she tells the boy to do, that she can cause them great harm. So she said, I thought your parents were going to be enough to satiate my needs, but they are not. I want you to go back to school, and I want you to bring me something from all of the students in your class. And they do. He does. And so that night at 2:17 in the morning, that night, all of these pupils, they leave because, and we know that it was 2:17 because they have security cameras and they have mobile devices and alarms and things that are all set at 2:17. At 2:17 is when they are. So as it is, this witch causes parasites that she takes over their minds. The one of the parents who misses his child ends up by rescuing the teacher. They both drive. They have triangulated the area. The location is at Alex's house. They go in. A fight ensues. But meanwhile, the little boy Alex has realized that he can make all of the children that are in the basement that she's feeding off of, he can make them attack the witch by wrapping her hair around the branch, cutting his palm on the thorns, and then breaking it. And then all of the children then come up from the cellar, and they chase this red-haired Aunt Agnes witch through the neighborhood, and then they end up by devouring her. At the end of the film, the witch is devoured, and the parents do not come back. They're too far gone. Some of the children have started talking again. It's all from the perspective of a narration. Some of the children have started speaking again, but we're not shown what they talk about. And that's pretty much the end of it. And yes, Aunt Gladys is terrifying Jason Mankey.
Thank you. Very thorough and not one-sided or another-sided. I don't know who'd get that one. But just in case that wasn't all the information, Heather Greene, do you have 5 more things perhaps?
Yeah, I'm going to do a few things here. I didn't get to do a huge deep dive on this one, but this is a new one, so I didn't have the luxury of flying out to California and doing all the research I normally do on these things. But anyway, let's talk about the film itself. 2025, it was released. It actually was bid on, and it went through an auction process a bunch of years earlier, was cast. In fact, Pedro Pascal was originally cast in this film, or slotted to be cast. I'm not sure how far in the process they got. A different cast was actually lined up for it. And then we had the strike that happened in Hollywood. I think it was 2022, 2023, which kind of put this all on hold. So we have the new cast now once it started filming. Its budget was $38 million. It's since grossed $267 million. And this is a very short time. And it has already surpassed just with the theater, which is theaters, forget about streaming. It already made its money back and then some. So this is a very successful film. Again, I said it was filmed in Atlanta. If you're from Atlanta, or if you're familiar with Atlanta suburbs, it is very clearly Atlanta. That is, I mean, it could be my neighborhood. Because I live in Atlanta, and I could tell those backyards and those houses looked very much like, not that so much, that's not as typical, but the one that the Aunt Gladys lived in was very, very typical for an Atlanta suburb. Especially in northern suburbs, it was filmed in Tucker. So anyway, as Patti said earlier, it was directed by Zach Kreger, who is first known as a comedian, and he directed, well, as a comedian, he was in Friends with Benefits, if you watch that show on NBC, and of course, White Kids You Know, as Patti pointed out. That was, I believe, the Independent Film Channel had that one. I did not watch either one of those, so I was not really familiar with his comedy. But he did direct a film called Barbarian, and it came out in 2022. I did not see that one either. Again, not familiar with his work, but it was very successful, which led to the ability and the his ability to auction this one off and get the backing he got for this film, because Barbarian was so successful. So that's Zach, that's our director. So let's look at our actors. We've got a few notable names. You know, I like to always bring them up in case you've seen them before. So Julia Garner, I recognize her from Ozarks. She played Ruth in that. She was great. That one I don't have on my list, but
Oh, that's a Silver Surfer from
Silver
Fantastic
Surfer.
Four.
Okay, yeah, I didn't put that one. I only put a couple on my list. So there she is there, inventing Anna. And she also got, I can't read. She's gotten Emmy Awards and Golden Globes. She's very successful and she's very recognizable as an actress, a younger actress. Of course, Josh Brolin, if you're a Goonies fan, you might recognize him as the big brother in Goonies. He also was in Milk more recently, the Harvey Milk biopic. And if you haven't seen No Country for Old Men, I've seen it multiple times. And that one is a very good film, and he is also in that one. Another name you might recognize, Amy Madigan. Am I saying that right? Madigan. Thank you. Married to Ed Harris. I didn't even realize that when I was doing a little research on her, but she's been around forever. Field of Dreams, the Carnival series, Grey's Anatomy. She's been in a ton of things, so you'll recognize her for quite some time. Good number of decades that she's been around. She, of course, was Aunt Gladys. Benedict Wong. I don't know if anybody recognized his face, but we did do Doctor Strange here. So there's some of our characters. So he is, you might recognize him from Doctor Strange. Another one I want to bring up is June Diane Raphael. So I recognize her immediately because she was in Grace and Frankie. And that is a very recognizable face and her demeanor. So I recognize her immediately. She, of course, had just a small role here as the girlfriend or wife of the police officer. And that police officer, we've discussed him before. He was much younger when we discussed him before. Alden Caleb, and I can't say his last name, Enric Reich, something. I can't say his last name. Aaron Reich. There we go. He was the cop. Of course, we saw him. He was actually played Han Solo in Solo, but we talked about him in Beautiful Creatures. He was Ethan, the main character who encountered the witches in that movie. So we've talked to him. He was also apparently in Oppenheimer, and I don't remember his role there. So those are some of our characters, a few others. But those are the ones I wanted to mention real quick. So let's talk about the witch herself. Now, every time I get further down in these numbers, with these points, I get a little bit more theoretical and a little bit more film geeky. So let's talk about the witch. Of course, we have one in this film, recognizably a witch. She's doing ceremonial witchcraft. Now, when our director, I saw an interview with him, and he talked a little bit about how he came up with the narrative here. And he didn't say, I want to make a witch film. It was all about the fear in the suburbs. I'm going to disappear some children. Let's put a scary teacher in there. Let's put a teacher in there that people blame. Let's make an angry parent. So he kind of built it. So it wasn't necessarily originally going to be a witch film, but the witch becomes the reason for the other parts. Okay. So and what's interesting is he was originally going to give the witch also a backstory. One of the segments was going to be from her perspective. He pulled it out because he didn't want to give her he said it didn't feel right. So what does that do? So here we have a witch who is very hard to pin down. Is she a biological witch? Is this something that she's been around forever and she's just biologically magical, sort of like the practical magic witches? Or is she more of a ceremonial witch, someone that's learned the craft of doing the things and the things happen? So we don't know. And the director actually gave the actress the choice, but they never spell it out in the film. We don't know in the film which one it is. Because she does do ceremonial stuff. We see contagion magic happening. We see blood. We have things being taken. We see spells being cast. We see candles. We don't see pentagrams or any kind of true chanting. So we don't see the full ceremonial pieces, but we do see some of it. So it's hard to tell. The other interesting part about her, and I'm not going to get too crazy with this, but if you read my book, you've read about the idea of the clown witch. This is a trope. This is a character, an archetype, if you will, that I named that's gone back for a very, very long time. I'm starting in the silent era. And typically clown witches, as time went on, were very much positioned with red hair, loud clothing, bright colors. Think of Endora, okay? Perfect example of a clown witch. They're usually played for comedy. They're usually, when witches are funny, when witches are clown witches, they're usually do silly spells and make mistakes. They're usually aunties that are just running around doing secondary character stuff. They're never scary. This is the first time that I've seen a clown witch merging with that sort of fear of clowns, that kind of to create an actual frightening clown witch. So that's an interesting twist here for me as a scholar and a person who studies witchcraft representations in the media. So you have that trope going on. So what do we do with that? I'm going to leave that there. Number 5, themes. And there's a lot of discussion about what's going on in this movie. I've read a bunch of different takes on what's going on. And I'm just going to throw some of the themes at you and we can discuss. So I'll just discuss, after. So first of all, this is really a road doll and hand that rocks to cradle combination, where we have the scary witch who eats children concept going on, which is very 80s satanic panic. So we're moving away from that idea of the feminist witch that we've been seeing in many of the more recent movies. Think of Wicked, for example, the most obvious. So, and a lot of the movies we talk about, even Gretel and Hansel had that. The backstory's gone, so we don't know why this woman is being so horrible in eating children. It's very 80s satanic panic, the witches, hocus pocus. So we have that going on. Of the perfect society, the stabling of the perfect suburban area where you see ring cameras and people doubting each other, and the cops don't tell the whole story, and the cops are pulling out their cameras and they're beating people. And you also have this problem with the teacher who's drinking, and you have this other destabilized. Nothing's quite right. It's like people are just destabilized. It's not 1950s perfect suburbia. Something is wrong. People are not trusting of each other, and everything that is supposed to be something you trust is a little not trustworthy. So you're getting that as well. You're not getting a perfect suburbia, right? And then you add into that the moral panic aspect of it with calling the teacher a witch immediately. Okay, so you have that going on. And then you have the final one, and I'm going to bring this up, is that how easy it is for us to become weapons. Mm-hmm. How easy it is for us to become something that turns on our neighbor or turns on our loved one and bashes their head in with her own forehead. How easy it is that someone can come into our society and do something so simple, take something we have and turn us against our own. So I think this film is very much not throwing politics or society or social commentary. It's not at the forefront of this, but it's there. Mm-hmm. And it's very much a film of our time. So that's my lecture. I'll be in the back signing books. And I'm here all night. I could write, I literally could probably. I started crying to Ben after. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta write an essay somewhere. This is like a thesis on this. Sorry.
Thank you for that. All right, who wants to chat next about the film? Your experience with the film.
I mean, we barely heard from Scarlett. I think she needs to.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll jump in. It's funny. I had the same reaction as Heather did, where I was like, oh my gosh, this is a jump back to this 80s satanic panic witch time of we've gone from the archetype of the witch being the feminist and standing for the woman against the system to being the core of all evil. And I thought that it's very kind of indicative of the panic going on in society right now. Like you said, it's not right there at the front of the film. It's definitely in the back, but it is very prescient in its own way. looking at it from a screenwriting point of view, this is kind of a master class in screenwriting. The way that the structure is set up, it would have been nice to have her backstory, I think, but I can understand why they took it out. And like, as an occultist, I'm annoyed because I can't tell how old she is. I can't tell. She says she's sick, but is she getting better? Is she, like they don't, is she feeding off the children? Is she not? Are they making her better? Like I had a bunch of questions, but the way that this is structured, and Barbarian did this too. Barbarian had a very specific structure that we don't see very often, where they cut point of view like halfway through the film and just started on a whole different story, which they're breaking the rules of screenwriting in a very smart way. And I think that this is where that's really Zach's métier, and he's obviously very, very good at what he does. But I enjoyed this. I liked this film better than I liked Barbarian. Like I remember Barbarian when it came out, like everyone loved it, and every meeting that you went into was like, have you seen Barbarian? We want something like Barbarian. Like that was like I had a year of that when that came out. So yeah, it was interesting. I think really clever, really smart. I personally don't like to see the witch be the archetype of all evil, but I to go back to that is tough to see, but at least it was done by somebody that really knows what they're doing.
Thank you. Yeah. What stood out for me, I really liked the performances. I liked the acting. Everybody, I connected to everybody beautifully, from the drug addict, to the teacher and the drinking. How do you deal with it? And that fact that everything wasn't all right. That's like life. And that's so rarely done to me, what I see in films like this to this extent. So that's what stood out to me. And again, I laughed because it had some really nice comedy moments to it, which I like in a horror film. It had the jump scares I needed. It had the tension. It had the build. Everything that I would want in that film. I do think it got a little bit slow in the middle, but not enough to lose me. Not enough to lose me at all. So I stayed with it. It was one of my favorites, I must say, that we've watched here in the Coven for a while. It's like something fresh.
And it's because of the structure, the way that the structure kept cutting back. That's what makes it a little bit soft in the second act. And that was the risk that they decided to take. And I applaud that, because that is, we don't see a lot of that in this day and age. And so, yeah, I felt the same way, where I was more than willing, just because it was something different, to put up with that slightly longer second act that was, just a little bit quiet.
Yeah, me too. I like the multiple perspectives, how you're seeing it from the teacher point of view, how you're feeling the drug, how you feel it from the cop POV. I'm just not used to seeing that at all. So I totally liked it.
If I may, I actually want to piggyback off of that perspective of seeing it from different perspectives. I tell people whenever I used to teach acting, and I did a lot of background, a lot. When I lived in Los Angeles, a lot of background. And I myself wanted it to seem real, and I wanted to know where I was when the director called cut. So I believed that we're all the star of our own movie, and it just depends on where the camera is. So when I would do background, obviously you can't actually talk, because you want the mains to be able to get their lines out. But I would tell the story of the three little pigs, and it would depend upon how I was was I at a funeral, was I at a party? If I was at a party, it would be, I would whisper the story. And then if I were at a funeral, it would be, so I would do that, so that I would know where I was in the story, so that when the director called cut and reset, I would go back to that point, so that I would know where I was. And in my mind, I I was not trying to take their spotlight. I was, in fact, in my own story, taking my own spotlight. So I liked that they were able to show from different perspectives as well. One other thing I wanted to mention too was that there was a lot of thought about addiction in this one. Now, the director was adamant that it was not only about grief and addiction, but there was a lot of thought about addiction, even the way that the parents' homes looked, how alcohol can do, what methamphetamines can do, how it sort of takes over. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was the way that the children ran with their arms out. This, I know it seems really silly and disconcerting, but it was actually inspired in part by the end of the Vietnam War. There is a tragic, horrible, gut-wrenching photograph of a child naked running from her village, and she's in such agony and pain, and she has the arms out. So that is what I heard may have inspired that run. And this has so many different elements of social commentary, of addiction, of abuse, of how we become the weapons ourselves. And where I will say I did have to grapple with the idea that the witch was, again, the archetype of villainy, but in this instance, I actually really enjoyed it, and the fact that throughout the film they talk about parasites. Even when the teacher is talking, she's talking about parasites. When the principal and his husband are watching television, they're talking about the parasites that will go into a snail and they'll make it crawl up and be. And then, of course, there's I think there was one about the parasites in ants that make them crawl up on a leaf, and then they get attacked. They get eaten by a bird, and then another. It propagates that. So, and even when you phonetically in the UK, you would call her Aunt Gladys, but she's not in the UK. She's American. She's Aunt Gladys, which I find to be rather fascinating as well.
Thank you.
I think that coercion is another kind of big key thing in that movie too. I have to say that the scene where the parents are stabbing themselves in the face with the fork is one of the most effective coercion scenes I've seen in and simple and effective, where I was just like, wow, okay. That really worked. And that's, it wasn't complicated. It's like, you're going to do what I say or else this. And there was a lot of, I like when movies seem to have this, there was a lot of face puncture. There was a face puncture joke going through the whole movie. And I don't mean that like in a funny way, but it was obviously like, it's in there somehow. Mm-hmm. Between the officer getting the needles in the face. There's a lot of face trauma in this film.
I want to just bring this up, and then Jason hasn't talked, but I just want to mention real quick is that with the ant thing, since it came up, is it just dawned on me is that there's a movie called Blue Velvet, if you guys haven't seen it, many years ago, a fantastic film, and it opens with the concept of there being trauma or disruption or destabilization or suburbia isn't what it seems to be, and it opens up with a suburban scene, and then it tracks down below and there's ants, and it shows the ants. This is the opening of Blue Velvet, and this has a similar using the ants and the idea of there's a couple moments, Richard-Lael, you brought up one of them where they mention that concept of the ants and the bugs and that in this as well. So I thought that's just an interesting thing that popped into my head is that use of that as connected to suburbia and connected to the behavior in that realm.
I find suburbia as a setting really fascinating in this movie, because I would argue ever since Steven Spielberg, when we see a movie with children in it, it's this beautiful, idyllic spot. We're running around at night. We're playing kick the can. Everything's fine. Even in some other horror movies with kids, the suburbs are still fun, right? Maybe there's a threat in the background, but they're still fun. And here, I think we create a suburb that is a lot more like real suburbs. Alex's parents disappear basically for a couple of weeks, month. Like, there's a period. I'm not sure exactly how long the kids are gone and everything else, but the parents are gone for that period of time too. Nobody thinks to check on them. There's that one visit from the police, and there's just a loneliness to that house, a solitariness to that house. And we think America's not like that, but I would argue that America really is like that today. And we don't talk to our neighbors, and we have no idea what's going on, and we don't think to check on them as they're just being fed soup for weeks and weeks and weeks.
And I admit, Jason, I actually have that fear. I mean, I'm well known, I'm everywhere, but I have that thought of like, what happens if I just didn't show up? What would happen? I am a recluse by nature. I am a recluse. I give readings, but I rarely ever check my emails. I don't answer my phone anyway. So what would happen? No one would know.
I'm the weird person who talks to everyone when I'm out and about. So I think I would be discovered within like an hour or two, just because I know so many people and I talk to all my neighbors. But I know that's the exception these days, and it's no longer the rule. And I just was really struck by that solitariness. The teacher was pretty solitary. Brolin was really solitary too. Nobody thinks about what their neighbors are doing, what's going on over here. It's easy to say the teacher is there because she's somebody that everybody knows. She's easy to cast blame on. It's harder to cast blame on that person that you don't know down the street.
Right. Richard-Lael, we would know. Come Wednesday, we would know if you didn't show up.
Yeah, I mean, your body might have been decomposing for 6.5 days, but we would know.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Or on school day. If you didn't show up to University Magicus and you didn't show up here.
That is also true. That's also true. But when I lived in Hollywood, I lived, and I did talk to my neighbors. I lived in I was fairly new to Los Angeles, and I lived in this tiny little one-room studio, just diagonal from Hollywood Forever. And I did know my neighbors. I knew I knew the people on the one side because they were loud and obnoxious. And then I knew they were there. And then I knew the guy on the other side because he was a hoarder, and he would call the cops on me and say that I was doing satanic orgies.
Aw, I want to be invited.
Right? I knew the guy down the way because I had found this thing on the street, and it was this fabulous thing, but it had rained, and I set it out to dry, and then I had to go find where it went because he was like, "Oh, I just thought someone was throwing it out." But I will tell you that on the 4th of July, I was out. I was out with the fellow that I was seeing. I was out. And when about a week went by, and one of my neighbors said in passing, he said, "Boy," he said, "this place reeks." It was like a week after. And I went, "Oh, you know what? I hadn't noticed that." I go into this place and I have candles, and I guess you're right. It does smell really badly. And then I went into the kitchen, and I come back out, and I see my neighbor standing at my closet door. And then I went, "Oh," and he's gone. Like, it was just, he was there and he was gone. I went, "That's weird." Well, the neighbor that I saw ended up by being killed. Long story short, I come back a week later, and there's all kinds of cops around. And the guy that I was seeing says, "Oh, darling, be careful, be careful. There's police around." I'm like, "Oh, I don't care. I'm going in the front door. I don't enter through the back door. I'm not the staff." It's this weird thing. So the cops get me, and they say, "Where do you live?" I tell them. And they said, "Okay, don't step in the blood." And I'm like, "Okay." So they bring me in, and they say, "Where were you on the 4th of July?" And I said, I was out. And they said, "Well, your neighbor over here said that you are you have gay satanic orgies and that that you murdered the guy down the hall. And I said to them, listen, of all the people in this little building, I would not have done the guy in that apartment. It would have been the guy next door that I would have gotten rid of first. But he was there. I'm not going to, in case there's still things. He was there for a week. Nobody knew until the maintenance man went in. Nobody. A week.
Yeah, sadly, that happens with elderly people a lot. You got to get to know your neighbors. And I mean, everybody's writing about how our disconnected society. There are a few neighborhoods left that people know each other.
Right.
Scarlett and I live in a neighborhood. You know the people in your building. I know everybody in all my streets. We have barbecues and block parties. We're like Americana in the middle of the Hollywood Hills. You guys can make it happen. One person, you could meet your neighbors. You really can. And especially your older ones, get to know them because that happens. It happens.
They'll be checking on you if you die unexpectedly alone in your house and you don't want to be eaten by your cats. You need your neighbors.
That's right. Even the evil witch on Ivorine, that's me.
I can guarantee that is very common in the suburbs of Atlanta. What they were projecting here with the Ring cameras, and even when the one mom opens the door barely, well, I'm not comfortable with that. And this is the father that she had seen in the school that was suffering from the exact same problem, but she would not let him see the camera because she was not comfortable with that, hiding behind with the Ring there. And I could say, I mean, I live in the Atlanta suburbs, and I don't know my one neighbor. I've lived here for almost well over 10 years, and I've seen him. I've tried to talk to him. I don't ever see him. I mean, he's never there. So, you know, I know other neighbors but it is. And I think someone said that it could be partly our disconnected society or our now digitally connected society. And I think that's definitely, if we were to go on a philosophical rant, I'm sure that's part of it, because it's so easy just to come on and chat on Reddit and various things and ignore your neighbors right outside, including your little animal friends and trees and everything else. So yeah, this is definitely a symptomatic issue that they're dealing with in this film. And I'll just say that I thought it was I love films that don't go in linear order when they tell a story. So they did it very effectively. And I thought there was some great camera work involved. I thought it was a little gory for me. My taste, I could have cut down on the gore, but I get it. It wasn't extraneous. It didn't get too far outside the film, but anyway, I enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to a potential number 2, which he says is possible.
On a more positive note, Patty made a note of this earlier. There were times when I found the movie pretty funny, and I'm not sure that I was supposed to laugh at all those times. Like at the very end of the film, when the kids are running through the suburbs and crashing through the glass and tearing the screen doors off, I thought that was hilariously funny, because it was so unexpected to see something like that. And you don't see things like that. And I laughed really good and hard. And then Aunt Gladys gets her face torn off, and I stopped laughing. But it was watching some of those scenes because people were just doing things you didn't expect them to do.
Right. And that's a comedic device. I mean, we see it in movies all the time, and they'll run past a couple watching TV, and they come out the other side and they've got a sheet over them, and then the other people come across. Yeah. I mean, it's an age-old comedic device. I was very surprised. And then the one guy looks over and there's this crazy old woman running through, and then there's a bunch of kids, and he just looks the other way. I laughed out loud too, Jason.
Yeah, I think we were supposed to. I think we were supposed to break that energy to keep you on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So
I often laugh in the wrong places in movies. You know, like I find the Jurassic Park movies hilarious, the new ones, because they're so bad. But no one else in the theater is laughing with me. So I'm glad that people were laughing with me this particular time.
But also,
was Aunt Gladys scary to everybody else too? Like, anytime she was on screen, you know, like she would try to be charming, but that would last for about 22 seconds. and then you're just instantly creeped out by everything. The wig, the fact that she looks like Bozo the Clown, the really old clothes, the glasses. The actress who played her just did an outstanding job. Amy Madigan, just terrific.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So any other comments before we move on, if anybody has quotes? Does anybody have quotes?
Not really.
We don't have any quotes. All right. Well, then we move on to Jason. Do we have a Mankey movie moment?
We do. Remember that these are always hard to do when the movies are good, right? It's easier when they're bad. This was tough. But I do have a few unanswered questions about weapons after watching it yesterday. I'm going to start with Alex. Alex is the boy who did not disappear, and he has to feed his 17 classmates and his 2 parents soup to keep them alive. That's 19 cans of soup a day, and it presents a lot of math that was not explained in the film. 1 can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup, not diluted, is 10.75 ounces, or about 64.5 teaspoons. I did all this work for you. Feeding a drooling zombie-like person 64.5 teaspoons of soup a day has to take at least 5 minutes, but it's more likely to take something like 10 minutes, judging by how fast Alex feeds people in the movie. Let's say it's 10 minutes per person. That adds up to over 3 hours of feeding people a night. That is a lot of time spent on soup. Did he ever get his homework done? Did he ever have time for anything else other than soup? But some of you are saying Alex didn't feed every kid a whole can of soup a day. But those kids were not emaciated, and they had plenty of energy at the end of the movie. Clearly, they were getting entire cans of soup, or they would not have been able to run that fast and tear off Aunt Gladys's head so efficiently. So yes, clearly, whole cans of soup every day. And I can't help but think of Alex buying all of that soup, which I suppose had to occur daily. It's got to be 20 cans of soup a day. He too has to eat. No one got suspicious about a small boy buying 20 cans of soup daily? This police force is inept. That's 140 cans of soup a week. That is a lot of soup. I feel greedy and judged if I buy 10 cans of condensed soup in one shopping trip. Alex was doing twice that on the regular. Speaking of inept police, Police Officer Paul was stuck with Aunt Gladys for how long? Clearly it was several hours. Is there not GPS on his car or on his phone? Why wasn't anyone concerned about this? Was everyone down at the donut shop? Or perhaps the force was finally investigating the condensed soup shortage in town. Whatever was happening, it was clearly not good policing. And Aunt Gladys, how dumb were Alex's parents? Does his mom really have an Aunt Gladys? If she was really the woman's aunt, wouldn't everyone have warned her to stay away? Or perhaps everyone was already dead in the family, which in and of itself should be a huge warning sign. If the last thing I hear is Aunt Gladys is staying with us, and then I never hear from that part of the family again, maybe I would assume Aunt Gladys is to blame. Why are all the people in horror movies so dumb? And finally, where were the weapons? I get it, the children are the weapons. But mostly the children just run around with their arms spread out. Unless you are specifically programming those kids to rip someone's face off, the most harm those kids are going to do is to store shelves. Just think of all the merchandise they are going to knock down with their arms spread out like that. Kevin to aisle 10, please. Kevin to aisle 10. Just think of all the stuff Kevin is going to have to pick up and put back on the shelf. Seriously, though, I starved myself of information about this movie for months, so everything would be a surprise. But with a title like Weapons, I did expect a few things, like actual weapons. In my head, I'd built up this fantasy that the movie would end with giant laser beams, or someone would use one of those cool maces with a ball and chain on the end, and then bees would come out of the spikes. But no, we can't have cool things like that. Flaming swords are always nice too, but no, again. We got bundles of sticks and bowls of water. It was like Aunt Gladys took horror movie lessons from the Blair Witch. So what are we to make of these gaping plot holes and weapons? Well, they should infuriate you and take away any enjoyment you got while watching this film, because these issues were big, important, and not just dumb things I made up to fill my 4 minutes on the show.
I got one for you, Jason.
Yeah.
What happened to the investigation of the husband, of the principal's husband, that's face got bashed in by the principal? Did they ever go and look for, like, what happened to that?
Right. And the principal's dead too, right? So you think you'd go to the house and find all of this stuff out. Did they have a Ring camera? Like, did they get a picture of Aunt Gladys?
Right.
I think every horror film, though, you have to set aside certain expectations and just live in this world where people are going to make really dumb choices, right? And you have to just suspend disbelief.
Certainly.
That was brutal, though. That scene really hurt me.
Me too.
And as soon as someone said, no, I don't want a glass of water. I like to drink from a bowl. I would have been like, no, dog, get out. You're done. Get out of the house. You're not drinking from a bowl.
Well, and then that brings up the other thing. You said, where were the weapons? So, okay, the kids are the weapons, right? As you pointed out. Well, maybe the weapon was the witchcraft.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was also the weapon was what they do to each other, how addictions become weapons. We also think about there was a school shooting that happened on February 17th, which is 2/17, which is the time that they awakened. So there's a lot of, then there are the dreams of the weapons, and then there is the longing for the child, which is a weapon, and then the drug needles become weapons. Like, everything is a weapon.
Yeah. I think, Jason, you were saying, did you find Aunt Gladys scary? And when I was first looking at her, I was like, note to self, don't cut your bangs too short.
Yeah. Holy
That's
crap.
a Caesar cut. That's a Caesar bang cut. You're not even close, Scarlett. You're not even close.
But I have been close.
That's funny. That is funny. Okay, well, it is time. Now, all of you in the chat room, thank you again for all your participation. There are some great comments, quotes, and things. Let's vote. Wands up or wands down on weapons?
I so wish I would have brought a stick and snapped it in two right now, but I didn't.
A little thorny stick.
I didn't think of that until just right now, and I'm like, oh, darn it, and I don't have time to go get one. But yes, it's still up.
Okay, I can't find my wand, so my goat is up. This are unanimous wands up, which is rare, if hardly ever, maybe once has happened before. That is good. Goats up, wands up, sticks up, knives up. So, okay, all you folks, okay, wands up from Kim, wands up. Thank you. I didn't watch it. Sorry. Soup can up.
Can up.
I know. Had we thought, I would have had a soup can. I would have had wands. Kim just says wands up. So, all right. So for those of you who didn't say it, if what we talked about intrigued you at all, it's going to HBO Max. You won't have to pay the whole $10 that we had to pay, but I think it was worth that $10. I do. C.A. Burnett says wands up for the weapons. Again, I like the directing. I like the performances. I like the concept. I liked all of it. Goats up. What are we doing next week? Oh, I'm not going to be doing it next week. I'm going to be on a plane to New Orleans. But what are you guys doing next week?
We are doing Witchcraft. It's the 1988 horror film that led to quite a long franchise, Witchcraft 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So Witchcraft, 1988.
Okay,
When I hear things like that, I know one other thing. That is not something my wife is going to watch with me.
No.
Satanic Panic Horror, front and center to next week.
Okay. All right. We got a couple of minutes left. So anybody have anything interesting going on this next week or two that they want to talk about? People can come see us or where they can find you. Richard-Lael.
I am really easy. to find. I'm at thegentlemanpsychic.com, though again, message me on the medias of social because I get overwhelmed and I have executive dysfunction and I never check my emails. So I'm everywhere else, all of the other socials and media. Of course, Vampire Balls, and I do readings and I do seances here in my home, so you can come and see me here. Yeah, that's it. New Orleans. University Magicus, Scared and Alone. I'm a little bit of everywhere.
Thank you very much. Jason.
My next trip is not until November. I'm just going to be celebrating Samhain at home. But on November 21st, I will be in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Culture Fair being held there.
Beautiful. Thank you. Heather.
I am going to be in Minneapolis visiting my coworkers in a couple weeks. Just working with my authors. That's just going to be a fun little trip. But then after that, I will be teaching a class on the ancient French Wiccan religion.
Oui.
Here in Atlanta. I don't have the date for that, but it's going to be in the Atlanta suburbs. And I also will be at Conjuration with a number of other great witchy folks. It's a pop culture conference that focuses on pop culture magic, movies, gaming, all kinds of everything you can imagine, even Broadway. And so I'll be doing a few classes on haunted dolls and puppets, and I'm probably going to be on a Broadway panel because why not? And if you get to sing, that'll be even better. And a few other things. I may even do some readings. It's going to be a fun weekend, November 14th to the 16th, I believe those are the dates. And you can find it Conjuration in Atlanta.
Perfect. Thank you. Scarlett.
I just relaunched my website, which is very exciting. It's scarlettamars.com. I'm prepping for a music video. I'm also on script now, so I'm pretty busy. And I'm in the middle of teaching a series, Witching the Art of Words, which is like a creativity and creative writing and witchcraft series all rolled into one, which is something that I absolutely love to teach. So that's what's keeping me busy these days.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Anybody in who wants to get to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, this weekend I will be there for Paganomicon.
Phenomena.
Wow.
Sounds like a Muppet song. Is what it sounds like.
I will be helping lead a couple rituals. I will be teaching a doll class both on haunted dolls and on puppets. I will be doing a seance. And again, check it out. Phenomena. You can find it online. Next week, I will be with Richard-Lael in New Orleans. We've got 4 days of vampire ball events. I've got a seance with a ball, and I've got 2 different book signings for Dollcraft. I'm going to be at Bloody Mary's place doing ritual. We're doing a ritual and blessing and a book signing for Dollcraft. And the very next day on Halloween itself, I'm going to be with Ghost City Tours. They're planning a whole event with readers and like candy apothecary witchy stuff, doing another book signing. So coming down to New Orleans Halloween week, and then I get busy. Anyway, that is about it. You guys like us, please. Follow us, please. Check out our website. Check out our books. We all have all of the above. We love your input. We love your 10. We didn't. Only Jason has 10. 10. But tell your friends about us. I got to order the book. Yeah, order the book. Order all 10. I'll order everybody's books. And where you can order stuff is mysterycontrol.com. I think you can get many of our books besides Llewellyn and Amazon and your local store. Go to your local store when you can. But we do, as Richard-Lael said, have a fabulous merch. You can get a pillow with beautiful Richard-Lael right on it. You can get cloaks and capes and T-shirts and bling, Black Phillip bling, including Black Phillip, right at mysterycontrol.com. So other than that, we are witches, and we have one more thing to do. And if there's not a rush for us to run at full speed with our arms spread, unless we have to cackle, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah!